I'm Sally Goldberg-Powell. I'm instructional technologist and the lead of the studio at the Center for Excellence in Learning and Teaching, and I'm joined by Dahlia.
Hi, my name is Dahlia. I'm a teaching spaces coordinator at the center, and I'm supporting the new studio, and I'm excited to share with you all about the Lightboard. So the Tech for Teaching Studio, it's a new space that we have. It's a small but flexible space that's designed for creating easy to produce short duration multimedia content that you can use in your teaching. So you can come and create small videos or audio files to share with your students that can allow for new formats of content delivery and providing new and interesting ways for them to engage with the content. And we have a number of different setups that we can arrange the space in advance for you to be able to bring your vision to life. So we have our Lightboard, which we're excited to share with you today. And we also have a green screen, or we also have a black or white backdrop for videos. So basically you can have any background you want, or have your slides or graphics or images pop up with you on the screen. We have a document camera where you can record objects on a table or something that you're showing with your hands. And we have we also have professional grade microphones and adjustable stands and soundproofing as well to increase the audio quality. And we have other equipment like a laptop that has OBS software and a stream deck. And we have a teleprompter where you can load your script onto it and read from when you're recording your video, and also a 360 video camera kit. And so we're going to share more about how you can book the space later in our presentation.
So moving on to the Lightboard specifically, in this image here, we have a diagram that shows you the equipment we often use for this. So we have a camera there, the LED lights that are pointed sort of directly to the sides of the camera to light the person a little bit better. We have a black curtain backdrop that goes behind. There's actually a door behind me right now. So because this is a multifunction studio, we have it so that the green screen's on one side, the black curtains on the other, and we set up our Lightboard towards the door and then close the curtain for recording. So we can just flip between the different setups that we have. We have several options for markers and colors. We do find like the hello that's written behind me that probably looks like Ola to you is written in a green. So the colors don't show up as very distinct, but they do show up as different from each other a little bit. And then of course we have our camera and our ability to connect to OBS Studio to flip it right away for you. So you could take the file right away. We also have an overhead view of it, so you can get a sense of what the setup is. Here's an example I have. I don't have my audio up, which is probably a good thing, but you'll just get a sense of what it looks like once you record. Full disclosure, the cameras that we use and the lenses that we use don't actually capture the entire board. They capture an area of the board, so there's a little bit of a spillover. So we always make sure that we indicate with just some of the dry erase marker where your actual area to work is. You'll notice from this video, this was done by one of our students. That it's an example of showing some diagrams and being able to draw in front of you, but something that she regretted after the fact, and we kept it just to show you, is that she wore a light shirt, right? So if you wear darker clothes and have sleeves, you won't obstruct what's being shown as much. So if you want to learn more about Lightboards, I've included a lot of links here to different ideas and some of the things you should know about Lightboards, all different links from different institutions. This is mostly something that's being used in higher ed and has been developed in sort of ed tech spaces in higher ed. So there's lots of things to check out and see how other people are using it out there. It became, super popular probably 5 or 6 years ago, something like that, right before the pandemic. They were really taking off and then people all went home. And now people are coming back, and hopefully we can start taking advantage of this technology that we purchased and appeared about 4 months after we went into a lockdown. I'll hand it over to Dahlia to talk more about the pedagogy and thinking about how you can use the Lightboard.
Thank you. So I'm going to share a little bit about what's called chalk and talk in teaching and learning and in inquiry-based learning. So chalk and talk refers to the traditional teaching method where the teacher explains a concept on a blackboard and the students will listen. And then inquiry-based learning is a teaching approach that involves posing questions and investigations that engage students in generating knowledge through their own experience and building on each other's knowledge through what they know and bring. And we might typically think of these as dichotomies or as either or, but in fact, they're often best done in an interplay where they can fuel and mutually inform each other. particularly in many disciplines where there is a certain knowledge base that's necessary for students to know and build off of. And so, for instance, if you're talking and you're writing or drawing and you're also inviting students to talk about it, then you're developing something together. So through that lens, the Lightboard Chalk and Talk can be used as a launching off point for classroom inquiry and for your students to take those key ideas and practice them and run with them. And so thinking in terms of Bloom's taxonomy, moving from remembering and understanding as a groundwork for then practicing and applying and analyzing and creating. So this allows students with different learning styles to be able to process material in different ways, both in order to absorb the material and also to engage with it. So allowing for both that direct and explicit communication of information, as well as the self-directed inquiry and experimentation. And one way to get the best of both worlds is through a flipped classroom approach, where content delivery is introduced asynchronously, so ahead of class, and then that class time can be devoted to more active learning activities in relation to that material. And so the Lightboard video can be one way that you can present information to students and start digesting that material before they get to class. And so you're basically elongating their exposure to those concepts, which helps them move the learning from being just internalizing to more inquiry-based activities of applying and problem solving. In terms of Chalk and Talk on video, there are a number of pedagogical benefits of doing Chalk and Talk on video with the help of the Lightboard. First of all, it increases that visual communication by allowing you to face the camera while talking through a concept. And so also for people who are new or maybe be uneasy about video production, using a Lightboard can serve as a natural extension of the classroom, of classroom teaching, and make it feel more comfortable. It can also provide different opportunities to do Chalk and Talk in creative ways. So for example, you can insert images or videos to annotate on your screen, or you can position a physical object behind the glass and write or draw key points around it. And you can also do multiple takes where you can erase or have a new blank surface where you can build on a complex concept that you're teaching. And you can also provide the video in advance, which allows for that more intentional integration of the asynchronous and synchronous, where the students can, be exposed at multiple points, as I was mentioning before. And this way, the content can be employed in a variety of ways. So you can get into smaller groups, you can play things repeatedly, you can pause and provide gradual or self-directed engagement, and it opens opportunity for that responsiveness and critical engagement with the content rather than just having it delivered without question. And in terms of benefits to student access, providing the video in advance allows students to review the material at their own pace multiple times. They can replay it as many times as they need, pause it, and that allows for both students who like the freedom to move more quickly through material, and also those who might need to go a little bit slower, take notes, and struggle with the material a little bit more. And providing Chalk and Talk in a video also allows you to integrate more accessible formats, such as supporting materials, including a transcript or closed captions, written notes, or a companion guide. So you can provide that multiple ways of accessing the material, and you can use it again and again in your future courses as well. There are different ways that you can integrate them into your course. So for instance, you can provide a refresher or an aid prior to the beginning of a course or module, which can be accompanied with a checklist so that students can follow and make sure that they understand the key concepts. You could also provide a preview to the lesson, which you could accompany with the form that allows students to submit their questions in advance in connection to kind of a taster video that spurs their thinking. And you can also create a review of what is going to be expected in an assignment or a homework task, which you could pair with a practice sheet for students to go through, in addition to that class time, so that it can be reinforced and you can just refer students back instead of having to repeat yourself. And I think, yes, I'm going to pass it back over to Sally.
About creating your own Lightboard video. The first thing you want to do is to select your content and keep it as simple as focused as possible. You don't want to cover too many things in one video. You can always create more than one video if you have more you'd like to discuss. I'd also suggest having a point form plan rather than relying on a full script. This will allow you to focus more on the drawing and to practice that drawing ahead of time on paper so that you can make sure that you are prepared for doing the video when it's time to do it. You also want to make some revisions. So once you've practiced a few times, you might find that things aren't working quite as you'd expected. So you might decide to simplify further or to add more detail. You also might want to think about whether or not you're going to want to have things already drawn on the board when the video starts. Of course, you'll want to pick your outfit, and this is actually really important because as we saw in the example, you want to avoid wearing bright colors so that you're not obscuring anything on the screen. So dark and muted is better than going completely black because the background's black and you'll blend in. And of course, you'll want to bring some water so that you can clear your throat when necessary and be ready to take a few takes because often things don't go exactly according to plan the first time. It's good to have a few options to go back and choose from. Some things you might want to show or say as you're doing your video. First of all, you might want to introduce the topic and what to expect in the video to give people a sense of what they can expect to see as you go through the process. You'll also want to make sure to write clearly and legibly in a way that you can expect most of your students or all of your students to be able to read. Again, remembering to wear that dark clothing so you can see everything. And remember to do one step at a time. So remember this video might be used in different ways by different students. Some might want to pause and reflect on what you've done so far. So making sure not to jump into the next step too quickly will give those pause points for people. Another thing to think about doing is walking away. So when you're doing a presentation, if you walk away from the screen and allow the full screen to be seen with all of the text or drawings that you've done at once and take yourself out of the picture, that can help students to absorb what's been done. And finally, remember to review and conclude at the end. So go over what you've talked about in the video and be sure to conclude in a nice way so that they are aware that this is the end of the video and that it's time to move on to perhaps the next thing that is part of the learning. And finally, some things you may want to avoid when you're creating the video. The one thing we try to avoid in all videos that we create are mentioning next steps or references to other videos or materials or references to dates because that can really limit how you can use the video later. You may choose to use this video in different ways in the future and rather than having to come back and re-edit the video or re-record it, leaving things fairly general can help in terms of where it's placed. So don't mention what you might show in the next video because the next video might change with future iterations of your course. Try not to squeeze too much text onto the screen at one time. The example that you see on this slide shows an example of a lot of text at once, and you can see how that can become overwhelming. So keep things simple and clear on the screen. Be really careful not to write over the edges of the video. Again, this example shot here is shot to the edges. Even our demo has the word origami is cut off a little bit so it looks like origami. So be careful that that doesn't happen. And we can be sure to watch back what you've done so that we can double check and make sure everything looks good. Again, avoiding that bright clothing and obscuring the writing with any parts of your clothing or your skin that might be important for people to see. So that's another reason why you might want to, jump out of the frame for a moment, like walk away for a moment and let people see the whole thing at certain points. And also avoid using the Lightboard when a slide presentation might work just as well. For example, if you just have a bunch of points like we have in this particular slide, where it's just a bunch of points or things to think about, it doesn't make sense to use a Lightboard instead to write out the points. It would be better just to show it in a legible, typed out way in a slide presentation. Be sure to check out our full slide deck that was part of the original presentation. In it, we have even more suggestions on how you can do Chalk and Talk at home if you'd like to try some other technologies. Obviously not the same as the Lightboard where you'll have the screen in front of you, but there's some interesting pros and cons that are gone through in the slides that you can look into if you're interested in that. In the meantime, we hope to see you in the studio soon and have a great day.